Quando Rondo, Savannah, Georgia native, NBA young boys artist, the man at the center of one of hip-hop's deadliest beefs, the same Quando Rondo who was there the night King Von died, the same one who allegedly got set up by his own gang, the same one who publicly dropped his flag and walked away from the Crips, a move that could have gotten him killed. But here's what most people don't know. Quando didn't just wake up one day and decide to leave the gang. Nah, this story goes way deeper than that. We're talking about a kid who joined the Crips looking for family, got used as a crash dummy for years, became famous, got caught in a deadly beef with Lil Durk and OTF, and realized his gang backdoored him for some bread. Today, we're breaking down the complete timeline. From Quando's traumatic childhood in Savannah to joining the Rollin 60's as a teenager, to becoming a crash dummy running missions, to blowing up in music, to the King Von situation, to the multiple shootings targeting him, to him publicly leaving the gang and converting to Islam, all the way to his current situation facing federal drug charges. This ain't just a story about gang politics. This is about loyalty, betrayal, survival, and what happens when the streets you bled for turn their back on you. If you've been following my channel, you know I keep it 100. Gang, just facts. So let's get into it. Tyquan Terrell Bowman was born March 23, 1999, in Savannah, Georgia. And from the moment he came into this world, life was a struggle. Savannah ain't like Atlanta. It ain't glamorous. It ain't the music industry hub. Savannah is one of the most dangerous cities in Georgia. High poverty, high crime, limited opportunities. The type of place where if you're born into poverty, you probably staying in poverty unless you find a way out through sports, music, or the streets. Quando's childhood was rough. Family. His mother was strung out on drugs, addicted, not present, couldn't provide the stability a kid needs. Imagine growing up watching your mom struggle with addiction, not knowing if she's going to be coherent today or completely gone. That does something to a child's mind. That creates abandonment issues, trust issues, trauma that shapes everything that comes after. His father? Locked up. Quando grew up without his pops in the picture because his dad was doing time. So right there, you got a kid with no mother figure because of addiction and no father figure because of incarceration. That's generational trauma, gang. That's the cycle that traps so many young black men in America. Quando was essentially raising himself. No guidance, no structure, no positive role models, just the streets and whatever lessons the streets teach. And the streets don't teach nothing good, they teach survival at any cost. He bounced around different family members' houses, sometimes staying with grandma, sometimes with aunts or uncles, never having a stable home. That instability, that constant moving, that feeling of not belonging nowhere, it makes you search for belonging, makes you vulnerable to anything or anyone that offers you a sense of family. And in Savannah, if you're a young black kid with no parents, no money, no hope, there's one family that's always recruiting: the gangs. Now, Savannah got blood sets and Crip sets. The gang culture there is deep, especially in certain neighborhoods. And Quando grew up in an area where the Rollin 60 neighborhood Crips had a strong presence. Not the same 60s from LA, these were affiliates, the Savannah chapter, but they operated under the same name, same flag, same structure. For a kid like Quando, who had nobody, who felt abandoned by his parents, who needed protection and purpose, the Crips offered exactly what he was missing: brotherhood, a sense of belonging, protection from the dangers of the streets, and most importantly, a family. That's how gangs recruit vulnerable kids, fam. They don't force you in. They offer you what you don't have at home. They make you feel valued, important, needed. They tell you, "We got you, blood. You with us now." And when you're 13, 14, 15 years old with no parents and no hope, that message is powerful. So Quando joined, started claiming Rollin 60's Crips, started wearing blue, started hanging with the set. And at first, it probably felt like he finally found what he was looking for: acceptance, respect, a crew that had his back. But here's what they don't tell you when you join a gang. Loyalty only goes one way. You gotta prove yourself constantly. You gotta put in work. You gotta be willing to risk your life for people who might not risk theirs for you. And if you're young, impressionable, and desperate to belong, they'll use that. They'll send you on the most dangerous missions because you got the most to prove. That's what happened to Quando. He became what they call a crash dummy. If you don't know what a crash dummy is, let me explain. In gang culture, a crash dummy is someone, usually young, usually new to the set, who gets sent on high-risk missions: shootings, robberies, retaliation hits. The dirty work that could get you killed or locked up for life. And if you get caught, you take the charge alone. You don't snitch. You protect the OGs. That's the code. Quando became that person for the Rollin 60's in Savannah. They saw a young kid who was loyal, who wanted to prove himself, who didn't have nobody to lose, and they used him. They'd send him to slide on ops. Sliding means going into enemy territory to shoot at rival gang members, usually Bloods or rival Crips sets. These weren't just beefs over disrespect. These were life and death situations. Shoot first or get shot, kill or be killed. And Quando, barely old enough to drive, was out there putting in work. He's talked about this in interviews, how he was doing crazy stuff as a teenager, how he was deep in the streets, how he was willing to do whatever for the set because that's what loyalty meant to him. The Crips became his identity, his purpose, his family. So when they told him to do something, he did it, no questions asked. But loyalty like that, it comes with consequences. Quando caught his first case as a juvenile. Got arrested for something. The exact details aren't fully public because juvenile records are sealed, but it's known he had run-ins with the law before he even turned 18. That's how deep he was. Risking his freedom, risking his life, all for a gang that saw him as expendable. Then, in 2017, when Quando was 18 years old, he caught a major case, got arrested on gun charges. This wasn't no petty misdemeanor. This was serious. Quando was facing real time, years in prison. His life was on a path straight to either death or incarceration, the same path his father had walked. But while he was going through the system, fighting that case, something clicked. Quando realized he needed a way out. He couldn't keep being a crash dummy forever. He couldn't keep putting in work for people who didn't care if he lived or died. He needed another path, another family, another purpose. And that's when he found music. The music breakthrough. Quando Rondo started taking music seriously, not as a hobby but as a lifeline, as an escape from the streets that were trying to kill or cage him. He started recording songs, posting them on YouTube, building a small local following in Savannah. His early tracks were raw, unpolished, but real. You could hear the pain in his voice, the struggle, the trauma. He wasn't trying to be the hardest rapper or the most lyrical. He was just telling his truth, rapping about what he lived, about being abandoned, about the streets, about loyalty and betrayal, about wanting more but not knowing how to get it. And people connected with that because there's millions of young people going through the same thing. Broken homes, absent parents, gang life, searching for belonging. Quando's music spoke to them in a way that a lot of mainstream rap didn't. Then he dropped I Remember, featuring Lil Baby. That song changed everything, fam. Lil Baby was already blowing up at the time, and having him on the track gave Quando credibility and exposure. I Remember started getting real traction. YouTube views, streaming numbers, blog coverage. Quando went from a local Savannah rapper to someone the industry was paying attention to. But the real breakthrough came when NBA YoungBoy noticed him. YoungBoy was already one of the biggest artists in hip-hop by 2018, and he had an ear for talent. He heard Quando's music and saw something in him, raw potential, authenticity, that pain and hunger that can't be faked. YoungBoy signed Quando Rondo to Never Broke Again, NBA, in 2018. That's when everything changed. Quando wasn't just a street rapper no more. He was part of one of the hottest camps in hip-hop. He had resources, a platform, industry connections, and most importantly, he had a mentor in YoungBoy who understood where he came from because YoungBoy came from similar circumstances. Quando started dropping project after project, Life After Fame in 2018, From the Neighborhood to the Stage in 2019, QPAC in 2020. Each project did numbers. Each project expanded his fan base. Each project proved he wasn't just a one-hit wonder. He was a legitimate artist with staying power. Songs like Motivation, Kickin' Shit, Soul Reaper, these became anthems. Quando had a melodic style mixed with street lyrics that hit different. He could sing, he could rap, and most importantly, he could make you feel what he was saying. By 2019, Quando Rondo was one of the hottest young artists in the game. Still only 20 years old, already had millions of streams, sold out shows, a record deal, money coming in. He was making it out. The dream was real. He was escaping the streets through music just like he planned. But the streets don't let you leave that easy. And the gang politics he thought he left behind in Savannah? They was about to follow him into the biggest beef of his life. Now here's where it gets interesting. During his come-up, Quando became cool with Lil Durk and OTF. This was before all the drama, before King Von, before the bodies. Quando and Durk had mutual respect. They were both signed to major labels, both representing the streets in their music, both young black men trying to make it. There were pictures of them together, studio sessions. Quando even had a song with Lil Durk called Baguettes that came out in 2019. Everything was cool. Everything was love. The rap game is small. Everybody know everybody. And when you're on the rise, you build connections with other artists. But the problem? Quando was signed to NBA YoungBoy, and Lil Durk was already starting to have tension with NBA YoungBoy. Not direct beef yet, but subtle shots in songs, social media subliminals, the type of friction that builds over time. And then King Von entered the picture. King Von was Lil Durk's artist, his right-hand man, his day one from Chicago. Von was also one of the most talented storytellers in drill music. His songs were vivid, cinematic, real street tales that captured the attention of hip-hop. He was blowing up fast and OTF was rising with him, but Von had a reckless energy. He wasn't just rapping about the streets, he was active in the streets. And when Von got into beef, he took it personal. He took it to the extreme. He wasn't the type to let things slide. In 2020, King Von started dating Jania, who was NBA YoungBoy's ex-girlfriend and baby mother. Now, in hip-hop, dating someone's ex, especially when you got beef brewing, is a violation. It's disrespectful. It's personal. And when pictures and videos surfaced of Von and Jania together, it escalated everything. NBA YoungBoy felt disrespected. King Von didn't care. He was moving how he wanted to move. The tension between NBA and OTF went from subliminal to direct. Diss tracks started dropping. Social media turned toxic. Fans started picking sides. It was war. And King Von made his position clear in interviews and on social media. He said if he ever caught NBA YoungBoy or anybody from his camp, he was gonna smack them, violate them, disrespect them publicly. That wasn't just rap beef. That was a real threat. Quando Rondo, being signed to NBA, was now automatically involved. He was part of the camp Von was threatening, and Von wasn't making distinctions. He said anybody. That included Quando. The tension was building. Everyone in hip-hop could feel it. This wasn't gonna end with just diss tracks. November 6, 2020, the night everything changed. November 6, 2020, Atlanta, Georgia, Monaco Hookah Lounge. This is the night that changed everything. The night that turned rap beef into real-life tragedy. The night that made Quando Rondo one of the most controversial figures in hip-hop. The night King Von died. Let me walk you through exactly what happened, because the details matter. It's around 3 a.m. King Von and his crew are outside Monaco Hookah Lounge. They'd been inside partying, celebrating life, enjoying success. Von was on top of the world. His album, Welcome to O Block, had just dropped a week earlier and was doing crazy numbers. He was happy, in a good mood, living his best life. At the same time, Quando Rondo and his crew pulled up to the same area. Now, some people say this was a coincidence. Others say somebody knew both sides would be there and wanted drama. We'll never know for sure. But what we do know is that when Von saw Quando, he approached. Remember, Von had been saying publicly he was gonna smack anybody from NBA's camp. He wasn't bluffing, he wasn't just talking. So when he saw Quando, he walked up on him, started talking aggressive. The exact words exchanged, we don't know. But witnesses and video footage show it escalating fast. Von swung on Quando, connected, hit him. It turned into a brawl. Von's crew and Quando's crew started fighting, punches flying, bodies colliding, chaos in the parking lot. Then Lul Tim, one of Quando's people, pulled out a gun and started shooting. Multiple shots fired. King Von was hit. So was one of Von's friends. Quando's people took additional shots too. The whole thing lasted maybe 30 seconds, from confrontation to gunfire to everyone scattering. Security footage captured it. The internet would dissect every frame. King Von was rushed to the hospital, but the damage was too severe. He died from his injuries. At just 26 years old, one of the most talented artists in drill music was gone, just a week after dropping his best project, right as his career was taking off, dead in a parking lot over beef that didn't have to go that far. Lil Tim was arrested and charged with murder. Quando Rondo wasn't charged because he wasn't the shooter, but in the court of public opinion, he was guilty. He was there. It was his man's. It was his camp. People blamed him like he pulled the trigger himself. The hip-hop world erupted. Social media went insane. OTF fans wanted Quando dead. They flooded his comments, sent death threats, posted his address, made it clear Quando Rondo was marked. Lil Durk posted tributes to Von. The pain was real. His brother, his artist, his day one was gone. And everybody knew this wasn't over. The retaliation was coming. It was just a matter of when and how. Quando went into hiding, deleted social media, stopped doing interviews, moved in silence because he knew his life was in danger. OTF had money, resources, and most importantly, they had motive. They lost King Von. Someone had to pay for that. Meanwhile, the legal case moved forward. Lil Tim's lawyers argued self-defense. Von swung first. The fight was already happening. Tim felt his life was in danger and reacted. Prosecutors pushed for murder charges. The case is still ongoing as of now, years later. But legally or not, the streets don't wait for court verdicts. The streets operate on a different code. And by that code, Quando Rondo had a target on his back. Beat 5. The retaliation begins. The retaliation started and it didn't take long. In May 2021, Quando Rondo was shot at in Los Angeles. He was leaving a location, got in his car, and shots were fired at his vehicle. Quando wasn't hit, but one of his friends was shot in the hand. They survived, but the message was clear. OTF was hunting him. Now, officially, no arrests were made in that shooting. No one was charged, but the streets knew. The blogs reported it. The feds would later allege, and this is important, that Lil Durk was involved, that he either directly ordered it or funded it, that OTF was actively trying to kill Quando Rondo. But the shooting in 2021 missed. Quando survived, and that probably made it worse because now OTF looked weak. They tried to get revenge for King Von and missed. The internet clowned them. Fans started trolling Lil Durk in his comments. Slide for Von. Get back for your brother. Stop rapping. Go handle business. Every single post Durk made, the comments were flooded with people telling him to get revenge. Some were genuine fans who felt like Von's death needed to be avenged. Some were trolls just wanting drama. But either way, the pressure was on Durk. Public pressure. Street pressure. The type of pressure that makes people do reckless things. And Lil Durk, whether he wanted to or not, was being pushed into a corner. His reputation was on the line, his street credibility, his loyalty to Von, the optics of him continuing to be successful while Von's death went unavenged. It wasn't a good look in the streets. So in August 2022, another attempt happened, and this time they didn't miss. August 19th, 2022, Los Angeles, California. Quando Rondo was at a gas station with his crew. They pulled up. Regular gas station stop, nothing unusual. But someone was watching. Someone had followed them. Someone knew exactly where they were. Shots rang out, rapid gunfire. Quando's car was hit multiple times. But Quando himself wasn't the one who got shot. His cousin, Lil Pab, real name Savannah Robinson, was hit multiple times. Critical injuries. He was rushed to the hospital, but didn't make it. Lil Pab died at just 23 years old. The streets erupted again. Another body in the Quando versus OTF beef. Another young black man dead over rap politics and retaliation. Another family destroyed. Quando was devastated. This wasn't just his cousin. This was someone he grew up with, someone from his crew, someone he loved. And Pab died because of Quando's beef. Because someone was targeting Quando and Pab was in the wrong place at the wrong time. The guilt from that, the trauma, that stays with you forever, fam. No arrests were made immediately, but the feds were watching. They were building a case. And in October 2024, more than 2 years after Lil Pab's murder, the truth started coming out. Lil Durk was arrested by the feds on murder-for-hire charges. The indictment alleged that Durk paid people to kill Quando Rondo, that he used his money, his resources, his connections to fund a hit, that he ordered the retaliation that resulted in Lil Pab's death, 5 OTF members were also arrested and charged. The feds had wiretaps, financial records, text messages, everything. This wasn't speculation no more. This was a federal case with evidence. Now here's where it gets even crazier. And this is the part that connects back to the Rollin 60's Crips. The Crips back door. So how did Lil Durk's people know where to find Quando Rondo in LA? How did they know what gas station he'd be at? How did they know his exact location at that specific time? That's the question everybody was asking. And then paperwork surfaced. Documents, alleged gang intelligence reports, and what they revealed was shocking. According to the streets and multiple reports that circulated online, when Quando Rondo came to Los Angeles, he checked in with the Rollin 60 Crips. Now, checking in is a term that means when you from out of town and you affiliated with a gang, you let the local chapter know you in their city. It's about respect, about paying homage, about making sure you protected while you there. Quando, being a Rollin 60 from Savannah, checked in with the LA 60s, told them where he was staying, gave them his location for protection purposes, because in theory, the Crips was his family, his brothers. They supposed to protect him, right? Wrong. Here's where it gets messy. Lil Durk has deep connections with the Crips in Los Angeles. Specifically, he's known to be close with Brick Baby, a rapper and Crip member from LA. Durk been seen with LA Crips multiple times. He got relationships there. He got access. And according to the rumors, and these are rumors, not proven facts, but they've been circulating heavy in the streets, the Rollin 60s in LA gave Quando's location to people connected to Lil Durk. They leaked where he was staying. They told them what gas station he'd be at. They set him up. If that's true, fam, that's the ultimate betrayal. Because Quando checked in for protection. He trusted the Crips because that's his set, that's his flag, that's his family. And they allegedly gave him up to his enemies for, what, money? Favor? Politics? Quando must have felt this betrayal deep because after Lul Pab died, after he realized he might have been set up by his own gang, Quando did something almost unheard of, something incredibly dangerous. He publicly left the Rollin 60's Crips, dropped his flag, denounced his gang affiliation, made it clear he wasn't Crip no more. Now let me explain why this is crazy. When you join a gang, especially one as big and organized as the Rollin 60's, you're supposed to be in for life. Blood in, blood out is the saying. You can't just leave. Leaving is seen as disrespect, as betrayal, as violation. People have been killed for less. But Quando didn't care no more. He'd already lost his cousin. He'd already been targeted multiple times. He'd already been allegedly set up by the same people who was supposed to protect him. What was left to be loyal to? So he left. And he didn't just leave quietly, he made it public, posted about it. Talked about it in interviews later, said he wasn't with the gang shit no more, that he'd been used, that he'd put in work for people who didn't have his back when he needed them. That's a dangerous move, fam, because now he's not just beefing with OTF, he's potentially got problems with the Crips too. People who felt he violated by leaving, people who knew his secrets, his past, his dirt, people who could expose him or worse. But Quando had reached a point where he didn't care about the gang no more. He cared about surviving, about protecting what was left of his family, about not ending up dead in a parking lot or a gas station like so many before him. The spiritual transformation, after leaving the gang, after all the violence, after losing Lul Pab, after being targeted multiple times, Quando Rondo went through a spiritual transformation. He converted to Islam. Now, Islam has a long history in the black community, especially among people coming out of street life. Malcolm X is the most famous example, went from street hustler to Nation of Islam member to Orthodox Muslim, completely transforming his life. Many rappers and people from the streets have found peace, structure, and purpose in Islam when nothing else worked. For Quando, Islam represented a clean break from his past, a new identity, a new code to live by, a new family, the Ummah, the Muslim community that was based on faith instead of violence. He started posting about his faith, growing his beard according to Islamic tradition, talking about Allah in interviews, making it clear he wasn't the same person he was before, that he'd changed, that he was trying to walk a different path. And you could see the difference, fam. Quando seemed more at peace, more focused, less reactive to the internet trolls and the death threats, more grounded in something bigger than himself. Islam emphasizes submission to God, regular prayer, charity, community, and leaving behind sinful behavior. For someone like Quando, who'd been deep in gang violence, music about violence, and constant beef, Islam offered structure and discipline he probably never had. But here's the complicated part. Quando changed, but the people around him didn't necessarily change. He might have dropped his flag and found faith, but his homies was still the same. His crew was still from the streets, and the beef with OTF wasn't going away just because he became Muslim. That's the struggle a lot of people face when they try to leave street life. You might change, but your environment don't, your past don't, your enemies don't. The circumstances that made you vulnerable in the first place don't just disappear because you found religion. Quando was trying to change his life, but the streets was still calling, the beef was still active, and as we'd find out, the feds was still watching. The federal case, June 2024. Just when it seemed like Quando was trying to move forward with his life, focusing on his faith and his music, the feds came knocking. Quando Rondo was arrested on federal drug conspiracy charges, specifically conspiracy to possess with intent to distribute marijuana. Now, on the surface, marijuana charges don't sound that serious. Weed is legal in a lot of states now, right? But federal marijuana charges are different. We talking about conspiracy, which means the feds believe Quando was part of an organized operation to distribute large quantities across state lines. Let me break down what conspiracy means legally, because this is important. You don't have to actually possess the drugs. You don't have to actually sell the drugs yourself. You just have to be part of the plan. If the feds can prove you agreed to participate in a drug distribution operation, even if you never touched the product, you can be charged with conspiracy. So what was Quando allegedly involved in? According to the indictment, he and several others were part of an organization that was distributing marijuana. The feds had evidence, wiretaps, text messages, financial records, witness testimony. They'd been building this case for a while, and when they finally moved, they arrested multiple people at once. Quando wasn't the only one charged. Several of his associates were arrested too. This was a sweep, the feds taking down what they believed was an entire operation. Now, there's a few ways to look at this. Some people say Quando was directly involved, that he was moving weight, making money off the drug trade even while pursuing his music career. Others say he got caught up because of his association. Maybe people around him was doing it and the feds included him in the conspiracy because of his connections and communications with them. Either way, the charges was serious. Federal drug conspiracy can carry years in prison. We talking 5, 10, even 20 years depending on the quantities involved and your criminal history. And Quando already had a record from his younger days, which wouldn't help him. So Quando was facing a choice: fight the case and risk decades in prison if he lost, or take a plea deal and accept whatever time the feds was offering. In December 2024, Quando made his decision. He took a plea deal, pleaded guilty to the federal drug conspiracy charge, and in exchange for his guilty plea, the prosecution recommended a reduced sentence. The sentencing happened shortly after. The judge gave Quando 33 months in federal prison. That's 2 years and 9 months. With credit for time served and good behavior, he could potentially be out in less than 2 years. Now, 33 months is significant time, but in the context of federal drug charges, that's actually a light sentence. Some people facing similar charges get 10+ years, so either Quando's lawyers negotiated well, or the feds didn't have as strong a case as they could have, or Quando cooperated in some way. The cooperation question is always sensitive in hip-hop. Did Quando tell on anybody to get that lighter sentence? Did he provide information about his co-defendants? The paperwork that's public doesn't indicate he snitched, but the streets always speculate. What we do know is that as of right now, Quando Rondo is in federal prison serving his 33-month sentence. He's expected to be released sometime in 2026 if everything goes smoothly. And while he's locked up, the outside world keeps spinning. The beef with OTF is still there. Lil Durk is fighting his own federal case for murder for hire. The Crips that allegedly set Quando up are still in LA. The streets that Quando tried to leave behind, they still remember him. The broader implications. So let's step back and look at the bigger picture here. Because Quando Rondo's story isn't just about one person. It's about a system, about cycles, about how poverty, abandonment, and gang culture trap young black men in patterns that are almost impossible to escape. Think about the trajectory. Abandoned by his mother due to addiction, abandoned by his father due to incarceration, raised by the streets, joined a gang for family and protection, got used as a crash dummy, found music as an escape, got caught in a deadly beef, lost his cousin, got allegedly betrayed by his own gang, left the gang, found religion, and still ended up in federal prison. That's not a failure of one person. That's a systemic failure. That's what happens when you grow up with no resources, no guidance, no opportunities, and the only family that accepts you is a gang that uses you for their benefit. Quando did everything people say you're supposed to do to escape the streets. He found a talent, music. He worked hard at it. He got signed. He made money. He became successful. He even tried to change spiritually by converting to Islam. And still the streets caught up to him. Still the violence followed him. Still the system found a way to put him in a cage. That's the reality for a lot of young black men in America, fam. The deck is stacked against you from birth. And even when you do make it out, the streets got a long reach. Your past don't just disappear because you famous now. Your enemies don't forgive because you found religion. The feds don't stop investigating because you changed your life. Now, let's talk about the gang betrayal aspect, because this is crucial. If the rumors are true that the Rollin 60's in LA gave up Quando's location to people connected to Lil Durk, that shows how transactional gang loyalty really is. All that talk about brotherhood, about being family, about loyalty over everything, it goes out the window when money, politics, or self-interest comes into play. Gangs present themselves as family to vulnerable kids who need belonging. But the reality? You're a soldier. You're expendable. And when it's beneficial to the OGs or the set to sacrifice you, they will. Quando learned that the hardest way possible. His cousin died because of it. His decision to publicly leave the gang was brave, but also dangerous. Because now he's in a weird position. Not fully accepted by civilians because of his past. Not protected by the gang because he left. And still targeted by his enemies. He's in no man's land. The most dangerous place to be. The conversion to Islam might save his soul, but will it save his life? That's the real question, because when he gets out of prison in 2026, he's still got the same enemies. OTF didn't forget. Lil Durk might be locked up on his own charges, but OTF is bigger than Durk. The beef is bigger than one person. And the streets got a long memory. Where things stand now. So where are we now? In 2025. Quando Rondo is currently serving his 33-month federal sentence for drug conspiracy. He's in a federal facility, doing his time, probably using the opportunity to reflect, plan his next moves, and work on music for when he gets out. Lil Durk is fighting his own federal case for murder for hire related to Lil Pab's death. If convicted, he's facing life in prison. The case is ongoing, and it's one of the biggest stories in hip-hop right now. Retry. Continue. The OTF members, charged alongside Durk, are also fighting their cases. Some might take pleas. Some might go to trial. But either way, the feds got their attention, and this case could dismantle OTF as we know it. Lol Tim, the man who shot King Von, is still fighting his murder case. Last updates indicated he's out on bond waiting for trial, maintaining his self-defense argument. That case could go either way depending on how the jury interprets the video footage and witness testimony. And the Rollin 60's? They still operating in LA and in cities across America. Business as usual. The alleged betrayal of Quando, if it happened, probably won't ever be officially confirmed or denied. That's how the streets work. Nobody admits to setting somebody up. Nobody admits to being disloyal. But people know. The word spreads. And reputations get damaged in whispers. The hip-hop community is watching all of this closely, because this beef has claimed multiple lives, destroyed multiple careers, and shown the ugly reality of what happens when rap beef turns into real street war. King Von is dead. Lil Pab is dead. Lil Durk might spend the rest of his life in prison. Quando Rondo is currently locked up, and his life will still be in danger when he gets out. Multiple other people caught charges. Families are destroyed. Communities are traumatized. And for what? Respect? Reputation? Retaliation? None of the dead are coming back. None of the locked up are free. The beef solved nothing except creating more pain, more loss, more trauma. Lessons and reflections. So what can we learn from Quando Rondo's story? What's the bigger lesson here? First, gang loyalty is a myth. The same people who promise to have your back will sacrifice you when it benefits them. The same set that recruited you with promises of brotherhood will use you as a crash dummy and won't think twice about it. Quando put in work for the Rollin 60's for years, risked his life, caught cases, proved his loyalty over and over, and when he needed them most, They allegedly gave him up to his enemies. That's the reality of gang culture. It's transactional, it's conditional, it's never what they promised it would be. Second, you can't escape your past without completely cutting ties. Quando tried to change. He found music, he got famous, he made money, he converted to Islam, but he kept people around him from his old life. He still had connections to the streets. He still moved in ways that kept him vulnerable. You can't half leave the streets. You're either fully in or fully out. Anything in between is dangerous. Third, beef in hip-hop has real consequences. This wasn't just rap beef. This wasn't just diss tracks and subliminals. This was real. People died. Careers got destroyed. Families got torn apart. And the cycle continues because retaliation leads to more retaliation, which leads to more bodies, which leads to more retaliation. It's endless unless someone breaks the cycle. Fourth, the system is designed to trap you. Quando did everything right according to the escape plan, found a talent, worked hard, got successful. But the feds still found a way to lock him up. His past still caught up to him. His enemies still hunted him. The streets still had a claim on him. That's not a coincidence. That's how the system is designed, to keep young black men cycling through poverty, violence, and incarceration. Fifth, timing is everything. If Quando had never been at that hookah lounge on November 6th, 2020, if he'd been literally anywhere else in the world that night, if he'd stayed home, stayed in Savannah, stayed away from Atlanta, King Von would probably still be alive, Lolpab would still be alive. Quando wouldn't have a target on his back, and none of this would have happened. Sometimes you're just in the wrong place at the wrong time, and it changes your entire life trajectory. Now, I'm not here to judge Quando Rondo. I'm not here to say he's a victim or a villain. The reality is more complex than that. He made choices, some good, some bad. He was in environments that shaped him. He had circumstances that limited his options. He's a product of his environment, but he's also responsible for his actions. Both things can be true. What I am saying is that his story is a cautionary tale about gang life, about loyalty, about beef, about the streets, about how hard it is to escape your past, about how the system keeps pulling you back in even when you're trying to change. So what happens when Quando Rondo gets out of prison in 2026? That's the million-dollar question, fam, because he's going to be released into the same circumstances that sent him there. The beef with OTF will still exist. Even if Lil Durk is locked up, OTF has members who feel like Quando is responsible for King Von's death. That's not going away. The Rollin 60's situation is murky. He publicly left the gang, but does that mean he's safe from them? Or does that make him a target? Historically, leaving a gang, especially publicly disrespecting them by leaving, comes with consequences. Will the 60's let it slide because he's famous? Or will they feel disrespected and want to make an example of him? His music career, what does that look like moving forward? Will fans still support him after being gone for nearly 2 years? Will the industry welcome him back? Will he be able to tour safely with all the threats against his life? Will venues even book him knowing the security risks? His faith, will Islam continue to be his anchor? Will he stay on that path? Or will the streets pull him back when he's free and has access to everything again? Converting to Islam in crisis is one thing. Maintaining that faith when you're free, when temptation is everywhere, when your old life is still accessible, that's the real test. His safety, this is the biggest concern. Quando will be a target the moment he steps out of prison. He'll need serious security. He'll need to move smart. He'll need to stay away from certain cities, certain situations, certain people. One wrong move and he could end up like King Von, like Lil Pab, like so many others who didn't make it. Personally, I think Quando's best move when he gets out is to completely relocate, leave the South, leave anywhere OTF has a strong presence, maybe move overseas for a while. Dubai, London, somewhere he can rebuild his life and his career away from the immediate danger. A lot of rappers with beef have done this, left the country until things cooled down. He also needs to be very selective about who he keeps around him. No more people from his old life unless they've proven they're truly loyal and truly changed. No more crash dummies. No more street dudes who gon' put him in compromising positions. He needs a team that prioritizes his safety and his career, not the streets. And he needs to use his platform differently. Quando has a story that could help young people avoid the mistakes he made. He could speak at schools, at community centers, at youth programs. He could be honest about gang life, not glorify it, but tell the real story of how it destroys lives. He could use his music to spread a different message. Not preachy, but real. Authentic testimony about what he's been through and how he's trying to change. That would be the ultimate redemption arc, turning his pain, his mistakes, his trauma into something that helps the next generation avoid the same traps. So there you have it, fam. The complete story of why Quando Rondo left the Rollin 60 Crips. From his childhood in Savannah to becoming a crash dummy, to blowing up in music, to the King Von situation, to losing his cousin Lul Pab, to the alleged betrayal by his own gang, to leaving the Crips publicly, to converting to Islam, to his current situation in federal prison. This story got layers. It's not just Quando left the gang. It's about systemic failure, gang politics, deadly beef, alleged betrayal, survival, and attempting to change your life when everything and everyone is trying to keep you trapped. Now I want to hear from y'all. Drop a comment and let me know. Do you think Quando was right to publicly leave the Rollin 60's even though it's dangerous? Or should he have left quietly? Do you believe the rumors that the Crips in LA gave up his location to OTF? Or is that just street speculation? Do you think Quando can successfully turn his life around when he gets out? Or is the damage already done? Is Lul Tim justified in claiming self-defense? Or should he be held responsible for King Von's death? What do you think happens when Quando gets released in 2026? Will he be safe? Will his career come back? Or is it over for him? Let me know in the comments. Let's have a real discussion about this.